next part in my video series about benching, answering your questions about bench. The other day I answered the question for you about leg drive and foot placement, finding how to really create the most tension that you can with your foot placement and your leg drive in the bench. We're going to talk a little bit more today about leg drive. So a lot of times when you're benching and you really turn that leg drive on full force, the hips will pop up. I see it all the time. I see it when people are competing, when I'm reffing, their butt just pops right up off the bench as soon as they turn on that leg drive. So I want to talk a little bit about leg drive in hopes of preventing that from happening to you. So one of the things that I like to have my clients do when they're practicing engaging their leg drive in the bench is actually setting up with their body a little bit hanging off the bench so that they can hold on right above their head and kind of just practice pushing with their legs without worrying about where they're placed on the bench, just creating that force. So I'm going to show you what I mean and I'll kind of talk through it. So you're actually going to set up in a way that your hips and your glutes are off the edge of the bench. I showed you a little bit in my last video kind of using this as a tool to find leg placement, foot placement, but for this exercise, you're gonna actually set up wherever your feet feel most stable and you're creating the most force. And for the first 3 reps of practicing this exercise, you're gonna keep your hands down here and just push yourself so that you're sliding up on the bench. So you're just gonna do that a couple of times. You should feel tension in your glutes. I mean, my glutes and my back are already starting to cramp just from engaging so hard because you're using all that musculature through your feet, pushing the force through the ground, and you're not letting your hips get lax and sink. So you're just going to create that force and push back. One more, push back. So your legs at this point should feel a little bit tired, a little bit shaky. So now what you're going to do is you're going to create that same force pushing back, but you're going to use your hands to stop yourself. So we'll set back up wherever your foot position feels most optimal, driving that force through the ground, keeping those hips engaged without letting them get lax. Hold on to the bench, and then you're going to just push as if you're trying to slide. Engage that leg drive, but your hands are going to stop you from actually sliding. So you can see when I'm actually doing that, my body is pushing backwards, but if I have the bar right here, it's coming right up. So I'll actually show you with the bar in a second, but the idea is that leg drive is going to push your body back and the bar is going to pop right up. So now I'm going to actually set up and show you what that force looks like with the barbell on my same thing. I'm going to set up my legs where I feel like I have the most force driving through my feet. So we'll create that tension in our legs and create that tension in your traps, in your shoulders, through the bench, pushing yourself so that your traps are really keeping you stable and from sliding. Bring the bar out, and we're going to create the exact same force with our legs. My legs are already engaged, even from this position, creating that static energy, that tension right through my muscles. Bring the bar down, and boom. Now, I didn't slide back, but you can see that that creates force through the ground, bringing the bar up off my chest. So that's really the idea of leg drive. You're not trying to engage your legs to push it up necessarily as much as you're pushing your body back, which jolts the bar up and back towards the rack. So that should, if you're doing it properly, keep your hips from popping up off the bench. If you're still having a problem with your hips popping up, it may be a foot positioning thing. You can check my last video where I talk a little bit about that. But you can also, just play around with your foot position. Maybe bring your feet wider so it's driving your glutes down through the bench. If you're a toes up, on your toes, heels up bencher, you might want to bring your feet in a little closer and point them more directly parallel with each other rather than having them pointing out. You can point them forward and really squeeze the bench with your thighs. There are a bunch of different ways that you can kind of play with that, but you really want to think, instead of just popping, boom, popping your hips up, you're pushing through the floor so that the bar is moving away from your body. So I hope that this is helpful. Feel free to message me if you have other questions. I'm happy to help, and if I don't have the answer, I'll send you to somebody that does. So thank you very much for watching.